So, welcome to Focus and Foundation. I'm Kelly, and I am the owner of Centerpoint Learning Solutions.
Hi, my name is Tina Kramer. I'm the creator of Simple Learning and the patent pending sound device. So, this week, Kelly and I are going to take a dive into organization and disorganization with the new year. So, oftentimes people are talking about getting rid of the old, bringing in the new, and then how do we keep everything organized? How do we keep everything where it should be? And Kelly, I have to tell you, it's so funny that we're doing this because I won't show everybody on the podcast, but I'm totally redoing my kitchen and I am setting in the middle of paint cans, a ladder. I have
Yeah.
everything everywhere as we're doing this podcast. So it is so fitting.
Well, what I think is funny is the fact that as we were talking just in general, the whole thing came out of a conversation about just normal life and where we're personally at this time. And I just think it's really interesting how, as a society, every January people bring in this whole idea of time to get organized. And I mean, and it's part of the sales tactic in every store, everything you see, the declutter, this and that and the other. Well, what that tells me is that um, we as a group of individuals, part of the human experience is this sense of wanting to be organized and wanting order. And we always seem to lack it for some reason. Even the most organized individuals or the most orderly individuals feel like they lack order. I think part of it has to do with a lack of understanding of what order is and what disorder is. Okay, so I don't know if this makes you feel any better, Tina, but just you're commenting about your household, that you're redoing your household and it's full of right now, or not your household, but your kitchen. You got the ladder and you got the paint cans and all of that stuff. And I was thinking, well, that makes sense because you're redoing your kitchen. Now, once your kitchen is redone, if you still have a ladder and you still have paint cans and you still have those things out, well, then that's a problem, right? But
Yeah,
there's a certain amount of chaos that goes with living, and that's got to be okay.
right.
And some of us have a little more chaos that goes along with our living than others. And again, that's got to be okay because that's what life is. We live life. And if you don't live life, you're not going to, um, well, maybe the other way around. If you live life, you will experience this disorder and then reorder. What we don't want to experience is chaos.
Right.
But the only people that don't experience those things are people that have their own difficulties because they're so stuck. And there is a number that fit into that too. But
And
anyways,
there
that's what I kind of see our conversation going towards.
I was going to say, so we have said so much just in this very short period of time. And then Kelly and I are going to go through and break this down. The people that we tend to work with deal with a more, and the word chaos fits perfectly. Chaos to the point, it often is a source of great amounts of frustration for the individual and then also for others around them. So I always tell this story. There was a young man that I worked with. It's been actually several years ago, and he was in high school. So he was about 16 and didn't get his assignments turned in, never knew where they were. It's just that story that we deal with a lot with children that have learning differences in school. And when he came to me, through the years, he had been given several planners to be able to keep track of his assignments, know when they needed to be turned in, and get them in on time. They never had worked. He did not know me. And on our first meeting, the first thing out of his mouth was, Mrs. Kramer, you're not going to give me one of those planners, are? Because I can tell you, it doesn't do me a bit of good. To which I smiled at him and said, no, honey, we're not going to give you a planner. So Kelly and I are going to start to unpack part of this because planners do help, calendars do help. All right. However, there are concepts, there are ideas that go underneath that when it comes to organization. And we're going to explain a little bit to you about the work that we do and how we can take that chaos, that level of frustration that makes it hard to live through life, and get it down to the normal organization and disorganization that most people experience.
For sure. When I think about situations of chaos, I generally think of Legos because most families have experienced Legos, and the feeling, the overwhelming feeling one experiences when you see scattered Legos. It is overwhelming. And the very first thing that a parent might think of in creating order is pick up the Legos, right? Pick up the Legos. Well, if scooping those Legos up and putting them in a box, does that create order? What do you think, Tina? Do you think that creates order?
Well, it depends on what level you're going for, but if you're going from they're all over the floor to in a box, yes, it does, I think.
Okay, that can create order, right? Well, you think it creates order and you would be content. What if I don't think that creates order? What if I think order is every Lego being separated by color? Or I know there's 5 kits here to build 5 different specialty things. And I think order is knowing where each piece to those is. And I need personally to be able to know where every piece is. And as you just came in and created order for me, you scooped them all up and you plopped them in a box. Am I going to experience the same feeling that you received by doing that?
No, not at all.
No,
Caused
right? And yet that happens
tremendous amount.
all the time. Yep. So that's a real life example of the planner. Okay, because in the planner didn't work for that young man at the time because it wasn't his. It wasn't his setup. It wasn't his way of developing it. The picking things up meets the need at the time to get the floor clean, but it doesn't meet the order aspect of knowing where things are when you need them so that you can build the Lego. You know, it is a short-term fix, but the long-term problem remains, right? So knowing that there are levels of order and that order is actually an individual thing is huge. It's huge to know that my order and your order might look differently depending on our age, our level of experience. Okay, even if we are of the same age, we may have different experience. Okay, the amount of personal disorder we've experienced and the amount of personal order we have created. And notice, and I would hope our listeners would notice that difference between being we've experienced and we've created. Busy moms like order, meaning they want to avoid chaos. Busy moms oftentimes for the opportunity to have that will put in a lot of extra work to make sure that their household experiences the peace that comes from what the world would say is order. When we do that, our children lack the opportunity to experience creating of order. And because they lack that experience or that lack that opportunity, they don't create that experience within themselves. So as adults, they may not have had enough opportunities to live in disorder, or more likely create their own order. So they live in disorder. And then those adults have children who then either innately can create order or innately cannot create order. And they're like, "Oh, ah," okay. And so um, down the line, we perpetuate a system, and it perpetuates through our families, and then it's reflected oftentimes in our academics. Not always, but oftentimes in our academics, lots of times in our relationships, all of those things. Um, in the end, where our difficulties come from is that we must be taught what order is and what disorder is. And we have to have the opportunity to intentionally build those two pieces, to know that things have a place, um, they have a purpose, and within their place, they should have a position. And if you learn those things and then you go through the process of building it, you'll understand what it is and can create it yourself. Um, but it's a very, very personal thing. It's a
And
very personal thing.
when we work with clients, so we break it down into these steps. So just what you said, looking at where's the proper place, then taking a look at the condition, like me telling you about what my kitchen looks at right now. Well, based on what I'm doing, I'm remodeling. I actually have order. Now, if somebody didn't know I was remodeling and they walked in, they're going to be like, "Ah."
Mhm,
But
mhm.
based on what I'm doing right now, I have order, around me. Now, if I leave it this way after I've restored the kitchen, then it becomes disorder. So through that process, then we're actually putting anchors in place. We're looking at things like time, size, amount, and then importance, because based on where we're at in life, based on our life experiences, the importance can change. You commented on, a mother that wants to keep things orderly in her home to look a certain way. Oftentimes, I'm working with adults that are coming to me, and they're really not talking about order or disorder. They're talking about frustration, chaos, and then anxiety, because they've went through life, they've never really considered that they have a learning difference. The concepts and ideas that we are actually teaching, they're not common out there as of yet. So then when I start explaining these anchors that we put in place so they can make a decision um, as to how to create order in their lives. Now, this may be due to their work. This may be at home, like you said, in relationships. It When you deal with challenges related to order and disorder, it manifests in all parts of our lives. For ourselves, frustration with ourselves, and then others get frustrated with us.
Right,
you know,
right.
if, if we're working with a team, we're working with a group, and maybe that team or that group is our family, and you're always late, you can't find things. Um, I've talked about before, my ex-husband, um, his briefcase. All right. He had taken the time because he had challenges with order and disorder. And he had taken the time, like all of his pens and pencils were in a bag. At that point in time in his life, he was dealing with two different phones based on traveling. He had a Blackberry, and then he had a regular cell phone. Those had a container each. Everything had a container inside of his briefcase. But if you saw him go to look for something, he would go through every single pocket. He wasn't able to remember or find. But if you looked at his briefcase, it was the most amazing, orderly thing that you ever. You just could not. I mean, I just could not back then. Before I have all the knowledge that I have now. I was like, how could you not find? How can it take you 10 minutes to find one thing that you literally, just had it in your hand yesterday, and it's in this amazingly organized briefcase? So when we're talking about that level, these anchors, this size, mount. So let me pick one. Let me pick size. Okay. If you do not have an understanding or a very weak understanding of how things fit together in different sizes, so small, medium, and large, let's say that he was looking for a folder that would only fit, maybe it was quite thick, and it would only fit in the center pocket in his briefcase. You can kind of see that picture with me. But because he
Mhm.
did not have that understanding of being able to compare to size, it did not occur to him, well, I need to look in the center compartment because that particular folder was thick enough, it was big enough, it's not going to fit in these other compartments. Like that did not exist at all for him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then interestingly enough, so you hear Kelley and I talk about order and disorder. We reference both because we deal with individuals that may not have an understanding, a clear understanding of either one. And then we also move into some OCD behaviors.
Mhm.
Like, can you say a
Mhm.
little bit about the OCD behaviors and why that actually has to do with order and disorder?
Absolutely. So in tying Tina's comments back to my comment about the busy family, um, here's the deal that we as families and trying to maintain our own functionality, right? Functionality, we create systems and they may or may not be efficient, but we create these systems. And so I think back to the mom. Okay, my mom, I'm sure she had her own learning differences. I'm sure she did. I mean, going back, I think about all these different things and how we all turned out the way we did, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, she had a system that she put into place. Okay. All right. Each of us kids comes into this world with our own lens, our own perceptions, our own perspectives, our own busyness. Some of them might fit into what we would consider typical, and some might fit into the atypical, which is more of a learning difference. Okay. Life, the way we go about life, we assume people are going to learn all these things just by being and being part of the group. Part of the group, you're going to learn this. Surely you know, like you were mentioning about the folder, surely you know that the fat folder has to go into the fatter pocket. Surely you know that. Surely you understand the way things follow each other, that this has to happen before that. Surely you know that. Surely you understand that that shoving everything in your closet didn't actually solve anything, you know? All right, so if as an individual we find that that's how we're feeling about the people around us, then I want to say, hold on, surely that didn't make sense to that individual, because if they're an intellectual individual, you don't have to be Einstein, okay? But if you're a living, breathing individual that has a learning difference, surely it didn't work. So guess what? Surely you must be taught. You have to outline it. All right. Now, in these groups of individuals, you have some people that have this innate understanding that things need to be a certain way, and it brings them peace. And they have this innate need to create calm within their own personal chaos. Okay. Because remember, order is a lot more than things. Order can be what's happening emotionally and physically and all of these other areas of us. Okay. We seek to be centered, to find calm. It's just the natural point of the world where we want equilibrium. And so, for individuals who are so seeking of equilibrium, they get to a point that they can't control a lot of things, but there are certain things they can control. And they learn that early on. And I know that I can control how many times I wash my hands. I can control how my closet looks. I can control the way I walk into the room. I don't know, there's just so many different things, right? Some are really far on the spectrum, other ones are just little tiny things. But when I get to a point of saying I need to control something and I can control this little piece of my world, we start seeing this more behavior, which becomes the obsessive compulsion. Because if I can't control this in this manner of doing it, then it triggers something else in me that causes more chaos in my world. I need, and it actually is like stroking that piece of our brain that allows us to have, and I don't know, I'm don't know if it's serotonin or if it's dopamine or whatever, but I know that it's stroking a piece of my brain that's helping me to like the feeling. And when things are off, I don't like that feeling. And I don't like it in a big way, not just a little but in a big way. And then it just spirals from there, right? Um,
So oftentimes our clients are quite gifted. So as I've learned over time, as I've worked with different individuals, so a picture hanging on the wall, for me looking at that picture, it is flat, it is square, it is as it should be on that wall. And I've had clients come into my office and be like, "Picture's off, Mrs. Kramer," and I'm like, "Is it really?" And they're like, "Yeah, it like a 30-second." I cannot see a 30-second. I just can't. My mind does
mhm,
not work that way. Theirs does. They can. Because I've had clients where I've went and got the level and they're absolutely right. And it will be off the tiniest, tiniest bit. However, they notice, they can see it, fix it. So we oftentimes are dealing with individuals that are perceptually gifted. And the gift, though, is also the source of the challenge. So that perceptual gift gives them the ability to see very small, minute details that others of us may not see. But then it also creates the challenge, and I'm going to go back to these anchors, these different anchors that Kelley and I actually teach. Those individuals tend to not have those. So
mhm,
they have a picture in their mind of what something should look like, and they are detail oriented, that picture needs to be very specific. And then when it's not, you start to see the anxiety or the frustration and the just they feel yucky. It's like I don't feel
mhm,
good, I've got to fix that.
mhm,
And as we
mhm,
put these anchors in place and increase their awareness and the understanding of the anchors, that like your example earlier, Kelley, you said, just because you've been with the group and everybody's picked this up without specifically being taught, you should know these things. Well, they have a learning difference. They don't know those things. And so there's a
mhm,
specific way that we teach. Now, I also want to make the point, it is so important, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a practitioner, part of the what we consider the neurotypical community, or normal, I don't like that word, but normal community, you don't understand what they don't understand.
mhm,
So you're at as much as a disadvantage as these individuals are. And these lovely individuals that I've got to work with over the years have taught me so much. I did not know it was possible to see a picture on the wall and know it was off by a 30-second. But they were absolutely
mhm.
right, and it was. I was wrong.
The thing that I think of too when we are as a teacher, right? Or a parent, because oftentimes we're coming from a situation for a parent who sees something in their child that doesn't quite feel right, doesn't match what their own personal experience is, or maybe the child's the first child and so they don't have anything else to compare to, or they are the third or fourth child and your life is busy and maybe you weren't paying as much attention as you do with the older ones to know exactly where they're at. And so all of those pieces and parts, right? We are all individuals, and so we think differently from each other, even though we have lived the same life in the same household, just by the fact that we're people, we're all individuals. Um, But it's so important for each of us to recognize that outward behavior is a manifestation of an inward situation. My outward manifestation of love for my children is due to an inward connection with them, right? So that's a typical one, a normal thing that we normally think about. But my outward tantrum over something that my child might not see or my parent might not see as a big deal, my "Blah" about it, right, is a reflection of an internal feeling that is there. It's an internal feeling that's here. And so we as people in our day-to-day life, we deal with the outward and we seldom think about that internal for that person and think about why did that actually happen. We learn that there's certain ways to do things, and sometimes the way we accomplish an activity isn't successful, but then the next time we do it in a little different way, it's successful. The next time I do it in that same way, it's not successful, but it was successful that once where this other has never been. So I'm going to do it this way again. Oh, it's not successful. I'm going to do it again. It's not successful. Oh, but now it worked. Okay. So now I'm training myself, do it, go to the left, go to the left, because every fourth time the left works, right? Um, so the real example to this is a little one that I'm working with right now who has the habit of not knowing, or she has developed not being able to easily name the letters. And she has developed a habit of in her mind going through the alphabet to find the name of the letter. Okay. So as we're going through and we're looking at letters, you can see her literally, I don't know if you can tell my eyes, but going up in her, and she's going D. And I'm like, I know exactly what you just did, right? And you found and you were correct in the name of the letter, da 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 da. So we go through this a couple times, and I finally said to her, I noticed you were doing this, and you are correct each time. I said, does that take you a little while? She says, yes. Does that make you feel awkward? And, so here she said, yes. I said, huh, do you know the name of that letter? Yes. Okay. So this time when you feel that feeling, well, I want you to recognize that you are not focused. Now, and mind you, this child already knows how to be focused and all these things. We've already gone through all of this. But I want you to recognize that you're not focused and let yourself be focused again before you go down that path and see what happens. And so she did. And it was funny because she was like, honestly, because I pointed out the different times that she did it and she could agree that she knew that that had happened with her. And she was just like, oh, okay. And the next time through, oh my goodness, she paused, but she did not. She paused. You saw her get herself back and said the letter each time, right? So she was able to do that because she became in a focused state and knowing, oh, right, this was inefficient. We all build inefficiencies, whether it has to do with school, whether it has to do with just day-to-day organization, whether it has to do with that situation that becomes the OCD, right? Because OCD behavior is inefficient. It might be serving what they need, but it's inefficient. It's taking them a lot of time.
So with adults who often come to me, they've been doing what that little girl has been doing for many, many, many years. So it becomes
Mhm.
second nature. It becomes part of their identity and part of who they are. I hear a lot of I'm clumsy. I'm a job hopper. I have anxiety. I am a stressful person. So it after someone does that for years, it affects their self-esteem and it becomes part of their identity. So part of the work that I'm doing with the individual is like Kelley, like you, I've got to teach them how to focus and catch when they are focused and not focused. But then we can release those old identities because
Mhm.
that's actually not true. That's not,
Exactly.
clumsy. That is not who you are.
Mhm.
It's something that's
Right.
occurring because of something else.
It's developed over time through repeated performance,
Yeah.
right? Repeated action while not focused. And any repeated action will become a habit. And we know that. That's just common sense. I don't want to say common sense, but that is a common knowledge piece, right? We know that 21 days to build a habit. That comes back in January. We talk about that a lot. January, turn around, da da da. Da. But we know that if we don't continue to repeat that, it will fall away for the positive and for the negative. Negative in that if I'm doing something I want to be doing, but for the positive, if I stop doing that, I am going to change my own personal behavior. And so then my understanding of who I am and where I want to go. I think right now is a great time for us actually to wrap this piece up and to be able to move into another one for our next episode. Um, it's been just a pleasure to talk about this January conundrum that seems to be common across the board and organization and kind of where we stem from. And I look forward to the opportunity the next time for us to have these kind of discussions. So until the next time, I'm Kelley with Centerpoint Learning Solutions.
And I am Tina Kramer, creator of Simple Learning and the patent pending sound device. Thank you so much for joining us on Focus and Foundations with Tina and Kelley. Please like us below, subscribe. We will include all the details from our podcast that you can find us at our own personal businesses as well. Happy New Year, everybody. Take care.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.